Inside this massive steel plant, thousands of tons of molten steel move continuously through automated production systems. The temperature of this liquid steel exceeds normal industrial limits, creating extreme heat, sparks, and constant motion.
Within minutes, this uncontrolled liquid metal is transformed into precisely shaped material for steel rebar production.
Every steel rebar produced here follows a tightly controlled industrial process before leaving this factory. This video shows every major stage, from molten steel handling to finished rebar ready for construction use.
Molten steel is directed into the continuous casting system for controlled solidification.
The casting tundish regulates steel flow before entering the mold.
Liquid steel enters the water-cooled copper casting mold. Rapid cooling begins forming a solid outer shell. The partially solid steel strand exits the casting mold downward.
Roller systems support and guide the hot steel strand. Secondary cooling sprays further reduce steel temperature.
Steel continues solidifying while moving through the roller assembly. Laser sensors monitor strand dimensions in real time. The steel strand reaches complete structural solidification. Freshly cut steel billets move onto conveyor systems. Automated torches cut the strand into uniform steel billets. Freshly cut steel billets move onto conveyor systems. Billets cool slightly during controlled conveyor transport. Billets cool slightly during controlled conveyor transport. Automated temperature sensors continuously monitor billet heat levels during reheating. Steel billets enter the reheating furnace, where temperature is raised evenly for controlled rolling. Steel billets move slowly through the furnace to ensure consistent internal heating. Steel billets enter the reheating furnace, where temperature is raised evenly for controlled rolling. Automated temperature sensors continuously monitor billet heat levels during reheating. The rolling mill prepares to shape steel billets into elongated rebar sections. Heated steel billets are immediately transferred toward the hot rolling mill. Steel billets enter the first rolling stand, where initial thickness reduction begins. Steel billets enter the first rolling stand, where initial thickness reduction begins. The steel passes through successive rolling stands for progressive dimensional control. The steel passes through successive rolling stands for progressive dimensional control. Grooved rollers begin forming the characteristic rib pattern of steel rebar. Grooved rollers begin forming the characteristic rib pattern of steel rebar. The rebar profile becomes clearly visible as rolling continues at high speed. Hot steel rebar exits the final rolling stand at its finished diameter. Hot steel rebar exits the final rolling stand at its finished diameter.
Cooling beds regulate temperature to achieve required mechanical strength. Air cooling reduces rebar temperature while preserving internal structural properties.
The rebar straightens naturally as it cools along the cooling bed.
Cooling beds regulate temperature to achieve required mechanical strength.
The cooling bed allows steel rebar to stabilize before precision cutting operations begin.
Cooling fans operate continuously to ensure uniform temperature reduction across all rebar lengths.
Cooling fans operate continuously to ensure uniform temperature reduction across all rebar lengths.
Automated arms align rebar lines before entering the cutting section. Steel rebar advances toward high-speed mechanical cutting equipment. Rotary cutting blades prepare to divide rebar into standardized construction lengths. Cutting machines slice steel rebar cleanly without affecting structural integrity. Freshly cut rebar sections move forward for automated length verification. Measurement sensors confirm each rebar meets precise dimensional specifications. Steel straps secure each rebar bundle to maintain alignment during transport. Approved steel rebar sections continue toward automated bundling systems. Bundling machines arrange rebar into uniform stacks for efficient handling. Each rebar bundle receives identification markings for traceability and quality tracking. Bundled rebar undergoes final visual inspection before warehouse transfer. Completed bundles are compressed to optimize storage and transportation efficiency. Approved rebar bundles move toward indoor storage and dispatch preparation. Approved rebar bundles move toward indoor storage and dispatch preparation. Storage areas organize rebar bundles by size, grade, and batch number. Inventory systems track rebar bundles before loading onto transport vehicles. Rebar bundles are positioned near loading bays for outbound distribution.
Finished steel rebar awaits dispatch to construction sites worldwide. Quality testing begins with random steel rebar samples selected from finished production batches.
Selected rebar samples are transferred to the mechanical testing station. Bend testing confirms steel rebar flexibility without surface cracking.
Load sensors record precise deformation behavior of steel rebar samples. Surface inspection systems verify uniform rib patterns and finish quality. Tensile testing machines measure steel rebar strength under controlled force.
Test results are automatically compared against international construction standards.
Approved rebar batches receive final clearance for commercial distribution. Certified steel rebar bundles move from testing toward dispatch preparation zones.
Logistics systems schedule rebar bundles according to shipment requirements.
Rebar bundles are staged near loading bays for efficient truck access. Forklifts transport heavy rebar bundles toward outbound loading zones. Truck trailers are loaded evenly to maintain transport stability. Loading cranes position steel rebar bundles onto transport trailers. Steel restraints secure rebar loads before trucks exit the facility. Final dispatch checks confirm load documentation and shipment readiness. Steel rebar leaves the production floor after completing the full manufacturing cycle.
Loaded trucks begin moving slowly toward the factory exit gates. Factory operations continue as finished steel rebar moves into distribution.
Steel rebar production transitions from manufacturing to global construction supply.
Loaded trucks move steadily through the dispatch zone toward the factory exit.
Loaded trucks move steadily through the dispatch zone toward the factory exit.
Steel rebar leaves the production facility after completing every controlled manufacturing stage.
Steel rebar shipments transition from factory control to external distribution networks. Final security checks confirm outbound shipments before trucks exit the plant. New steel material enters the process as previous batches move into distribution. New steel material enters the process as previous batches move into distribution.
Every stage inside this plant follows precise automation and quality control systems.
The factory operates continuously to meet large-scale global construction demand. Steel rebar production continues as part of an uninterrupted industrial cycle.